CEO mocked Black Mother. Fix this engine and I'll take your son, and he did it. A single mother? Here. Marcus Holloway's voice echoed across the TechDrive Industries courtyard like a whip cutting through the air. His icy blue eyes scanned the figure of Keisha Williams, 28, who was carrying her 8-month-old baby in her arms. Her worn clothes contrasted sharply with the $1,000 suits of the engineers around her. Are you lost? The shelter is 3 blocks from here. Keisha pressed Isaiah close to her chest, feeling the baby's tiny ribs through his thin onesie. She had gone the last 2 days without eating so she could produce enough milk to feed him. The eviction was set for tomorrow, and she had exactly $73 in her pocket, all that was left after paying for medicine for Isaiah's constant ear infections. The baby began to cry with that faint sound that broke Keisha's heart. He hadn't eaten properly in days. Please, sir, Keisha said, her voice trembling. I was just passing by and heard you talking about a broken engine. I used to work in mechanics. Maybe I can help. Marcus's laughter was cruel, echoing across the courtyard like shattering glass. Around him, 15 engineers from Stanford University, MIT, and Berkeley stopped working to watch the spectacle. The $3 million engine that was supposed to power the company's new line of autonomous electric cars had been stalled for 8 weeks, defying all attempts at repair. You? An unemployed black woman with a baby in her arms thinks she can fix what our best engineers couldn't. Marcus gestured toward the engine as if displaying a work of art. This machine represents 3 years of development, 89 patents, and the future of the automotive industry. It's not a lawnmower engine. The engineers laughed nervously. Dr. Jennifer Chun, a Stanford graduate, whispered to her colleague, "She seems desperate. Maybe we should call social services." But there was something in Keisha's eyes that made her hesitate. It was the same determination she had seen in the mirror when she decided to pursue engineering despite all the obstacles. Marcus approached Keisha, close enough that she could smell his expensive aftershave mixed with arrogance. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a chance to entertain us all. He snapped his fingers, and his assistant Chloe appeared with a tablet, already recording. If you can fix this engine that has stumped 15 PhDs for 2 months, I won't just hire you. I'll pay your son's full tuition until he turns 18. The courtyard fell deathly silent. Isaiah whimpered, and Keisha rocked him gently, her eyes never leaving Marcus's face. What if I don't? Marcus's smile became predatory. When you fail, and you will fail, you sign a document relinquishing your rights to that child. He deserves a family that can care for him properly. Not a mother who can barely feed herself. The words hit Keisha like physical punches. Several people in the crowd exchanged uncomfortable glances. Even by the cruel standards of Silicon Valley, this was extreme. But no one dared question Marcus Holloway, the CEO who had turned a startup into a billion-dollar company. 2 hours, Marcus continued, checking his Rolex. 2 months of failure versus 2 hours of your backyard mechanic expertise. The cameras will be rolling to document this historic moment when a desperate mother learns her limits. Keisha looked at the engine, then at Isaiah, who had stopped crying and was watching her with those big, trusting eyes. In those eyes, she saw his future: daycare, school, college, a life she might never be able to give him. But she also saw something else. She saw the memory of her father, James Williams, who taught her that engines had souls and that any problem could be solved if you knew how to listen. I accept, Keisha said, her voice clear despite the tears threatening to fall. But when I get it, I want it in writing. And I want your entire team to see an example of humility. Marcus laughed again. Chloe, get the paperwork ready. In 2 hours, we'll be calling social services. He turned to the growing crowd of employees who had come out of the building to watch. Folks, get ready for a lesson on why some problems require real education, not just good intentions. What Marcus didn't know was that Keisha Williams was more than she appeared to be. And his underestimation would cost him far more than he ever imagined. Detroit, 2003. Keisha was 8 years old when her father James first took her to Williams Automotive, a sanctuary of metal and oil on 8 Mile Road. Come here, princess, James would call, his huge calloused hands guiding her small hands over a Chevy V8 engine. This one has a sick heart. Can you hear it? Keisha pressed her ear against the engine block, closing her eyes as her father had taught her. It sounds sad, Daddy. Exactly, James smiled, pride shining in his eyes. Engines talk to those who know how to listen. This one is crying because a valve is out of time. We're going to teach it to sing again. Those were the golden days. James Williams was a legend in Detroit's automotive community. Men from 3 different states brought their impossible cars to the man who spoke the language of machines. Keisha grew up breathing gasoline fumes and mechanical wisdom, learning that every engine had personality, history, and a unique way of asking for help. Education is important, baby girl, James always said as she helped him with increasingly complex repairs. But never let anyone convince you that a diploma is worth more than true understanding. These engines don't care where you went to school. They just want someone who really understands them. In 2008, when Keisha was 13, the financial crisis hit Detroit like a tsunami. James's repair shop went out of business in 3 months. Customers stopped fixing old cars and simply abandoned them. The family home was foreclosed. James started drinking, then disappeared one winter night, leaving only a note, "You are stronger than me, Keisha. Use what I taught you." Keisha's mother, Sarah, worked 3 jobs to support them. Keisha studied on scholarships, excelling in math and physics while working part-time in small repair shops, always carrying her father's lessons like a sacred flame. She earned a full scholarship to study mechanical engineering at the University of Michigan. The first 2 years were triumphant. Keisha excelled, especially in fluid dynamics and engine design. Professors praised her for her intuitive understanding of complex systems. She was on her way to becoming the engineer she had always dreamed of being. Then Marcus came along. Marcus Holloway was a classmate, rich, connected, charming. The son of a Texas oil tycoon, he studied more for networking than out of any real passion for engineering. When he started pursuing Keisha, she interpreted it as love. When she found out she was pregnant in her junior year, he interpreted it as inconvenient. "A baby now would ruin everything," Marcus said coldly when she told him. "My family has expectations. My career has a timeline. You can handle this, right?" When Keisha refused, Marcus simply disappeared. He transferred to Stanford, changed his phone number, and his lawyers sent documents renouncing all parental rights. Keisha was left alone, pregnant, with only 1 year left to graduate. The university was not understanding. Special considerations were rare for single mothers. Keisha struggled through her pregnancy, studying between part-time jobs, sleeping in libraries when her apartment was too cold. Isaiah was born 3 weeks before her final exams. She took the exams with a postpartum infection, feverish and exhausted. She was unable to graduate. The following years were a downward spiral of unstable jobs, precarious apartments, and growing despair. Keisha worked in small workshops when she could find someone to care for Isaiah, but she was always fired when he got sick and she needed to miss work. The lack of support, prejudice against young, black single mothers, and the unstable economy pushed her further and further to the margins. 3 weeks ago, she was evicted from her apartment in Oakland. Since then, she and Isaiah had been living in their car, showering in public restrooms, eating at soup kitchens. The car broke down 2 days ago. Keisha sold everything of value to pay for the repair, but still owed the mechanic $200. This morning, she was walking through the streets of Palo Alto, taking Isaiah to a free appointment at the clinic, when she heard frustrated voices coming from the Tech Drive courtyard. Years of mechanical instinct made her stop and listen. She recognized the sounds of lost engineers, the same tone of frustration she heard in her father's workshop when a problem seemed impossible. "Maybe I can help," were the words that changed everything. Now, standing in front of the $3 million engine, with Isaiah in her arms and cameras recording her every move, Keisha felt her father's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. This wasn't just a broken engine. It was a chance to prove that a person's worth is not measured by their circumstances, but by their ability to see solutions where others see only problems. Marcus checked his watch again. 1 hour and 58 minutes left. "I hope you have a good lawyer for the custody papers." Keisha approached the engine, placing Isaiah in the stroller someone had brought. Her hands touched the cold metal, and she closed her eyes, letting 20 years of mechanical knowledge flow through her fingers. The engine whispered its secrets to those who knew how to listen. The engine was a masterpiece of German engineering, a hybrid system that combined traditional combustion with advanced electric technology. Its main components cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. But to Keisha, holding Isaiah as her hands explored the machine, It was simply another patient in need of diagnosis. "Tell me about the symptoms," she said to Dr. Chun, ignoring the muffled laughter of the other engineers. "Symptoms." Dr. Chun looked confused. "It's an engine, not a patient." "Every engine is a patient," Keisha replied, her voice carrying the authority learned in her father's workshop. "They manifest symptoms when something is wrong. Tell me exactly what happens when you try to start it." Dr. Chun, despite herself, began to answer. "It starts perfectly, runs smoothly for exactly 12 minutes and 30 seconds, then overheats and shuts down. Always the same time. Always the same error code, thermal flow disruption detected." Keisha nodded, rocking Isaiah gently. "And you've checked the cooling system?" "Of course," Marcus interjected sarcastically. "These aren't backyard mechanics. They're PhDs who spent 8 weeks checking every possible system. Cooling, fuel, electrical, software, all perfect individually." "Individually," Keisha repeated, a note of understanding creeping into her voice. "And together?" Dr. Richard Torres, an MIT graduate, approached. Despite his initial skepticism, something about Keisha's methodical approach piqued his scientific curiosity. "What do you mean by together?" "My father always said that engines are like orchestras," Keisha explained, checking on Isaiah, who had fallen asleep. "Each instrument may sound perfect on its own, but if they're not in sync, the music sounds wrong. Have you tested the harmony between the systems?" The question caused silence. Marcus frowned. "Harmony? What kind of pseudoscientific concept is that?" But Dr. Chun was intrigued. "Go on." Keisha approached the control panel, studying the diagnostic data with trained eyes. "This is a German-American hybrid system, right? Combustion engine manufactured in Munich, electrical systems developed here." "Yes," Dr. Torres confirmed. "It's part of an international joint venture. What does that have to do with the problem?" "Everything," Keisha said, pointing to a series of numbers on the screen. "Did you notice that the overheating always happens at 12 minutes and 30 seconds? That's not random. It's a pattern." She picked up a marker and began drawing on the nearby whiteboard. "The Germans use the metric system for everything: temperature, pressure, fluid flow. The Americans developed the control software using the imperial system. Someone did the conversions, but—" "The conversions are correct," Marcus interrupted impatiently. "Our verification software confirms that." "The mathematical conversions are correct," Keisha agreed. "But there's something the computers don't pick up." She drew 2 overlapping graphs. Sampling frequency. The German sensors report data every 0.3 seconds. The American software expects data every 0.33 seconds. Dr. Chen leaned forward. "A difference of 0.03 seconds. That adds up," Keisha continued. "With each cycle, the system becomes slightly more out of sync. After 12 minutes and 30 seconds, the lag reaches a critical point. The software thinks there's a thermal problem because the data isn't arriving when expected." The silence that followed was different. It was no longer disdain, but the silence of the collective mind processing a possibility that no one had considered. Marcus, however, remained skeptical. "Are you suggesting that 15 PhDs missed a basic timing error?" "It's not basic," Keisha replied gently. "It's subtle. And you were looking for complex problems because the system is complex. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one." Dr. Torres was checking calculations on his tablet. "If she's right, it would be a cascading synchronization error. The difference is so small that our individual diagnostics wouldn't detect it." "And how do you propose to fix this supposed problem?" Marcus asked, his voice still laden with skepticism. Keisha smiled, remembering her father's lessons on temperamental engines. "We need a synchronization buffer. Something that harmonizes the 2 sampling frequencies." She pointed to a nearby parts box. "Do you have a temporal interface module in there?" Dr. Chun was surprised. "How do you know about temporal interface modules?" "Because every modern hybrid engine needs one to manage multiple systems," Keisha replied. "It's been standard technology in Detroit for 5 years." The revelation that a backyard mechanic knew about technology they had considered cutting edge made several engineers uncomfortable. Marcus, sensing he was losing control of the narrative, became more aggressive. All right, assuming your amateur theory is correct, you have an hour and 15 minutes to implement a solution. And when you fail, I want you out of here before security escorts you. Keisha nodded, picking up Isaiah and placing him in the stroller. Dr. Chun, could you help me with the installation? I'll need someone to monitor the data while I make the adjustments. Of course, Dr. Chun replied, surprised to be treated as a colleague rather than an adversary. As Keisha began to work, her hands moving with confidence born of years of experience, the crowd grew. Employees from other departments came to see the woman who had dared to challenge the CEO. The company's social media began to be flooded with videos of the moment, hashtags like #MotherEngineer and #TechDriveDrama beginning to spread. But Keisha was focused only on the engine and her father's memory whispering in her ear, listen to what he's trying to tell you, princess. Machines never lie. The real test was about to begin. Keisha's hands worked with surgical precision, installing the temporal interface module while Isaiah slept peacefully in the stroller next to her. Dr. Chun monitored the diagnostic data, his expression gradually changing from skepticism to professional fascination. Sampling frequency synchronized, Dr. Chen announced. The German sensors and American software are now communicating at the same cadence. Marcus remained near the cameras, broadcasting live to the company's followers, his confidence beginning to waver as he watched Keisha work with a competence that contradicted all his assumptions. Well, anyone can install a component, he said to the cameras. The real test is whether it works. Keisha stepped away from the engine, wiping her hands on a rag. Ready for testing, Dr. Chun. The crowd pressed in around them as Dr. Chun initiated the ignition sequence. The engine roared to life with a sound that was music to Keisha's trained ears, smooth, balanced, powerful. The monitors showed perfect readings across all systems. Temperature stable, Dr. Torres called out, staring at her instruments with growing disbelief. Oil pressure ideal, added Dr. Sarah Kim. Electrical systems in perfect sync, confirmed Dr. Chun. The minutes ticked by. 5, 10, 12, 13. The critical point of 12 minutes and 30 seconds passed without incident. The engine continued to run with mechanical perfection, all systems working in harmony for the first time since its installation. Marcus glanced at his Rolex, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. The crowd was whispering, some employees already pulling out phones to document what appeared to be an impossible triumph. 20 minutes, Dr. Chen announced, his voice laden with reluctant admiration. No sign of thermal problems. Isaiah woke up and began making happy noises, as if he could sense the change in the atmosphere. Keisha picked him up, kissing his little forehead as she watched the perfectly functioning engine. How did you know? Dr. Torres asked. How did you identify a problem that had eluded us for 2 months? Keisha smiled, thinking of her father. My father always said that when you stop listening with your degrees and start listening with your heart, machines tell different stories. You are brilliant engineers, but you are looking for complex problems. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Marcus slowly approached, his arrogance fading in the face of undeniable reality. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of his public humiliation. 30 minutes, Dr. Chen announced. Perfect performance across all parameters. The crowd erupted in applause. Employees who had watched skeptically now surrounded Keisha with admiration and respect. Some were crying, moved by witnessing such an unlikely victory. Dr. Chun approached Keisha, extending his hand with formal respect. I apologize for my initial skepticism. That was an extraordinary demonstration of engineering intuition. Where did you study hybrid systems analysis? At my father's shop in Detroit, Keisha replied simply. And at the University of Michigan, although I didn't finish. Why didn't you finish? Dr. Torres asked. Keisha glanced at Isaiah, who was playing with his fingers. Because sometimes life gives you difficult choices. I chose to be a mother. Marcus finally found his voice, though he was visibly shaken. Well, you did it. Congratulations. I suppose we should discuss the terms of our agreement. The terms are simple, Keisha said, her voice clear and firm. As promised, you will pay for Isaiah's complete education until he turns 18. I want that documented legally. In addition, I want a formal job offer as a senior hybrid systems engineer. Senior engineer. Marcus nearly choked. You don't even have a degree. But she has something degrees don't teach, Dr. Chen interrupted. Real engineering intuition. I recommend we hire her immediately. Dr. Torres nodded. I agree. And I suggest she lead our new systems harmonization division. We clearly have a lot to learn. Marcus looked around at the crowd of employees, all clearly on Keisha's side, then at the cameras documenting his public defeat. He was trapped by his own words and the undeniable evidence of Keisha's competence. Very well, he said through clenched teeth. Chloe, prepare the contracts. But Keisha wasn't finished. There's one more condition. Marcus looked at her suspiciously. What? I want you to make a public apology. To me, to my son, and to all the people you underestimated based on appearances. And I want it broadcast live, so the world can see that talent has no color, gender, or circumstances. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked at the cameras, at the expectant crowd, at the woman he had tried to humiliate and who was now forcing him to confront his own arrogance. You can't demand that, he said weakly. I can and I am, Keisha replied. Either honor our agreement completely, or I will work for one of your competitors with the story of how I solved a problem your company couldn't. Marcus realized he was completely defeated. Not just technically, but morally, publicly, and in every way that mattered. The real lesson was just beginning. Marcus Holloway stood before the cameras for long moments, the weight of defeat settling on his shoulders like a lead cape. The crowd waited in silence, employees holding their breath as they witnessed a moment that would be remembered in the company's history. Marcus began, his voice faltering. He looked at Keisha, who held Isaiah with quiet dignity, then at the engineers watching him with a mixture of pity and expectation. I owe you an apology. He took a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. Keisha Williams, I offer my deepest and most sincere apologies for the way I treated you today. I judged you by your appearance, your circumstances, and not by your knowledge or ability. That was inexcusable. His voice grew stronger, more genuine. You demonstrated today that talent, intelligence, and competence are not measured by diplomas or financial circumstances. They are measured by the ability to solve problems, to see solutions where others see only obstacles. Isaiah made a happy sound, as if approving of the speech, eliciting nervous laughter from the crowd. To Isaiah, Marcus continued, looking at the baby, I apologize for suggesting that you didn't deserve your mother. You have an extraordinary mother, and I hope that one day you will understand how lucky you are. He turned to the cameras. To everyone watching, today I learned that prejudice isn't just morally wrong, it's economically stupid. We almost lost an exceptional talent because of assumptions based on appearances. I promise that TechDrive will implement policies to ensure that this never happens again. The applause began slowly, then grew into a standing ovation. Keisha felt tears running down her face, not from sadness, but from relief and vindication. Dr. Chen approached. Keisha, I'd like to make you a formal offer. Position of Director of Hybrid Systems Innovation, starting salary of $180,000 per year, plus full benefits and stock options. Interested? Keisha almost dropped Isaiah. $180,000? Considering you just solved a problem that cost us 2 months and potentially millions in delays, it's a solid investment, Dr. Torres added. 6 months later, Keisha Williams was in her office on the 15th floor of TechDrive Industries, watching Isaiah play in his portable crib while she reviewed designs for the company's new line of hybrid engines. Her synchronization solution had been patented and licensed to 3 other manufacturers, generating millions in revenue. The personal transformation was equally dramatic. Keisha completed her engineering degree through an executive program, with the company paying all expenses. She and Isaiah moved into a comfortable home in Palo Alto, complete with a backyard where he could play and a workshop where she could work on personal projects. More importantly, TechDrive implemented the Keisha Williams Program, an initiative to identify and recruit unconventional talent from underrepresented communities. The company partnered with community colleges, technical training centers, and community organizations to find the next generation of innovators. Marcus changed too. The public humiliation forced him to confront his deeply ingrained biases. He began therapy, attended diversity workshops, and became a vocal advocate for inclusion in the tech industry. His relationship with Keisha evolved from antagonism to mutual respect, and he became an unexpected father figure to Isaiah. "Mom, why are you crying?" asked a small voice from the doorway. Keisha turned to see Isaiah, now 5, wearing his little mechanic's jumpsuit, a birthday gift from Marcus. "I'm not crying, baby. I'm remembering." "Remembering what?" Keisha knelt down and hugged her son. "The day I proved that dreams can come true, even when everything seems impossible." Isaiah hugged her back. "Will you teach me about engines like Grandpa James taught you?" "Of course, my love. But first, I'm going to teach you something even more important." "What?" "That you should never judge a person by where they come from or what they look like. What matters is what's in here." She touched his chest, and here, she touched his forehead. Isaiah nodded seriously. "And also that engines have souls?" Keisha laughed, kissing his forehead. "Especially that." Down in the courtyard, she could see the new line of hybrid engines being tested, each running with the perfect harmony she had discovered on that desperate day 5 years ago. Her father's wisdom had traveled from a workshop in Detroit to the most advanced laboratories in Silicon Valley, proving that true knowledge transcends degrees, money, and prejudice. On the wall of her office, framed alongside her new patents and certificates, was a photo from that transformative day, her holding Isaiah while Marcus made his public apology. The image had gone viral, inspiring millions of people around the world who had also been underestimated because of their circumstances. TechDrive was now the world leader in hybrid engines, and the Keisha effect, the practice of seeking innovative solutions through diverse perspectives, had become a model studied in business schools. But the real victory wasn't in the financial figures or professional accolades. It was in Isaiah's bright eyes when he called her engineer mommy, in his confidence that he could be anything he dreamed of, and in the certainty that he would grow up in a world where talent was recognized regardless of its origin. Years later, when Isaiah asked about that day, Keisha would tell him the truth, that sometimes our greatest strength comes from our most difficult moments, and that we should never let circumstances define our worth. If this story touched your heart and made you believe that talent can emerge from the most unexpected places, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a situation where you were underestimated because of your appearance or circumstances? How did you prove your worth? Share your story in the comments. Remember, the greatest treasures sometimes come wrapped in the most unlikely packages. We never know when a desperate mother walking down the street might have the solution we've been looking for months. Comment, "Never underestimate," if you also believe that each person has unique potential that deserves to be recognized. Until the next story that will make you believe in the magic hidden in ordinary people who do extraordinary things.